You know what surprises me more than anything else after 30 years of treating aging minds? It's how many people blame themselves for feeling slow, scattered, or forgetful, as if it's their fault. But here's the truth. No one tells you. It's not your memory that's failing. It's your brain that's starving. And your eyes, they're sending the same distress signal. You just didn't recognize it. Let me ask you something simple. Have you noticed yourself squinting at menus more often? Struggling to read small print? Or maybe your vision blurs in the late afternoon when your energy dips. You're not alone, and it's not random. Over 11 million Americans over 60 are losing their vision due to macular degeneration. At the same time, more than 6.7 million are slipping into cognitive decline, memory loss, brain fog, mental fatigue. And here's the kicker. These two issues are deeply connected because your retina is literally part of your brain. That's not poetry. That's biology. The retina develops from brain tissue in the womb. So when your vision starts fading, your brain may already be in trouble. Now, if this is your first time on the channel, welcome. I'm Dr. James Porter. I've spent the last 30 years helping older adults repair their brains and protect their vision naturally, safely, and without expensive prescriptions. If you find value in this kind of honest, science-based health talk, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another breakthrough. I'm here for the long haul, and I hope you are too. Now back to your eyes and your brain. Because here's what gets even more alarming. Your brain and retina both rely on a constant, steady supply of energy, and they're the first to suffer when that supply gets disrupted. And yet, most of what we eat these days spikes and crashes our blood sugar, overstimulates our nervous system, and leaves our neurons running on fumes by mid-afternoon. So, what do? That's what today's video is about. Because, believe it or not, there are three humble beings that have been quietly overlooked. Yet, they deliver exactly the kind of clean, steady energy your brain and eyes are begging for. They're not trendy. They're not expensive. And chances are they're already in your kitchen. Let's start with one of the most powerful brain-eye fuels that 90% of Americans are underestimating. Black beans. They're not flashy, not trendy, but they are powerful. And for older adults struggling with brain fog or blurry vision, they might just be one of the most underused healing foods on your plate. Here's why. Black beans are rich in complex carbohydrates, the kind that release glucose slowly, feeding your neurons consistently, instead of spiking and crashing your system. For a brain that's aging, that slow drip of energy is not just helpful, it's life-saving. Studies show that as we age, our brain's ability to metabolize glucose drops dramatically. According to Harvard Medical School in 2022, glucose metabolism in the brain declines by up to 20% in seniors, especially in areas responsible for memory and attention. That means without the right fuel, the lights begin to flicker upstairs. And here's where black beans shine. Thanks to their high fiber and resistant starch content, black beans stabilize blood sugar levels for hours, keeping the brain and retina energized without overwhelming them. A study published in the Journal of Nutrition in 2020 found that older adults who consumed legumes like black beans regularly had significantly better glycemic control and cognitive processing speeds compared to those who didn't. But it's not just about glucose. Black beans are also rich in magnesium, a mineral that plays a critical role in neurotransmitter function and synaptic plasticity, the ability of your brain to adapt, rewire, and repair. In a 2018 study from the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease, seniors with higher dietary magnesium intake had a 37% lower risk of cognitive impairment. That's not speculation, that's clinical. Let's bring it closer to the eyes. Your retina is one of the most metabolically active tissues in your entire body. It needs constant energy and antioxidant defense. Black beans offer both. Their deep pigment is packed with anthocyanins compounds shown to protect retinal cells from oxidative stress and inflammation. A 2021 clinical trial in the Journal of Ophthalmology found that anthocyanin-rich diets led to measurable improvement in contrast sensitivity and retinal thickness in adults over 60. That's vision not just preserved, but actively repaired. And while all of this sounds very scientific, here's what it looks like in the real world. Sandra, a 72-year-old retired teacher, began adding black beans to her meals 3 times a week. Within 2 months, she noticed her late afternoon brain fog started lifting, and she stopped needing to enlarge the font on her phone. Just a bowl of beans, no pills, no procedures, just food doing what food was designed to do. So, how can you start? It's easier than you think. You can add black beans to your breakfast eggs for a protein-rich start. Mix them into a quinoa bowl for lunch. Blend them into soups or stews for dinner. Even a simple black bean salad with olive oil and lemon gives you what you need. Canned or dried, both work. Just rinse well to reduce sodium and bloating. And if you're worried about digestion, start small, half a cup, and increase gradually. Your gut will adapt, and your brain will thank you. The bottom line is this: black beans aren't just food. They are neurological allies. They provide stable energy, neuroprotective minerals, and antioxidants for your eyes all in one serving. They don't promise miracles, but they do something better. They nourish you exactly where you're falling apart, slowly, steadily, and sustainably. Next up, we'll look at another overlooked brain builder that works not through slow carbs, but through neurotransmitter chemistry. You may have passed it by on your salad bar and never realized it was holding one of the keys to daily mental sharpness. Yes, I'm talking about chickpeas. Let's move from blood sugar to brain chemistry. Because while stable energy is critical, it's not the only thing your brain is starving for. As we age, something more subtle, but just as devastating, begins to fade. Our neurotransmitters, these are the chemical messengers that keep your brain cells talking. And among the most important of these is dopamine, the molecule responsible for focus, motivation, learning, and even pleasure. Low dopamine doesn't just mean feeling down. It means slower processing, mental fatigue, indecision, and poor memory. It's that frustrating fog that makes it harder to recall names, follow conversations, or finish a task you just started. So, what does this have to do with chickpeas? Everything. Chickpeas, also known as garbanzo beans, are a natural dopamine-boosting food, not because they contain dopamine directly, but because they're rich in the precursors your brain needs to make it. The star player here is lyroin, an amino acid found in chickpeas that's essential for the synthesis of dopamine. According to a 2020 review in the journal Neuroscience and Biobehavioral Reviews, adequate dietary intake of tyrosine improves cognitive performance under stress and enhances working memory in both young and older adults. But tyrosine is only the beginning. Chickpeas are also loaded with vitamin B6, a key coactor required for converting tyrosine into dopamine. Without B6, the chain breaks, dopamine doesn't get made, and your brain doesn't fire the way it should. A clinical study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 2019 showed that older adults with higher B6 intake had significantly better memory scores and verbal fluency, even after adjusting for age, education, and physical activity. Now, here's something even more interesting. Unlike animal proteins that spike dopamine rapidly, leading to a crash, chickpeas offer a slow, balanced release, giving your brain steady access to neurotransmitter fuel throughout the day. This helps avoid the highs and lows that leave you exhausted by 300 p.m. And we haven't even talked about their impact on mood. Serotonin, another key neurotransmitter, is also supported by chickpeas through their rich supply of tryptophan and folate. A 2021 paper in Frontiers in Nutrition found that legume intake was positively correlated with lower rates of depression and better emotional regulation in older adults. So, while chickpeas may look like simple salad bar fillers, they're actually one of the most complete neurochemical allies you can eat. They feed your brain the raw materials it needs while stabilizing your gut, which we now know plays a direct role in neurotransmitter balance. Let's not forget the eyes. Retinal cells, just like brain cells, rely on precise chemical signaling to process light and send visual information. B6 and folate are essential for this process, and deficiencies have been linked to visual fatigue and even degenerative conditions over time. In 2022, the Journal of Ocular Biology published a study showing that folate supplementation improved retinal nerve function and contrast sensitivity in adults aged 65 and over. Chickpeas deliver that folate in a whole food bioavailable form. No pills required. So, how do you eat them? Simple. Roasted as a crunchy snack, mashed into hummus, tossed into soups and curries. Chickpeas are one of the most versatile foods on the planet. You can even blend them into smoothies for a creamy texture and a powerful brain bonus. Just 1 cup of cooked chickpeas gives you nearly 70% of your daily folate, 50% of your fiber, and a strong dose of plant protein and B vitamins. That's fuel for both your mood and your mind, with no crash, no side effects, and no prescription. Chickpeas don't scream superfood, but they act like one. They nourish your neurotransmitters, stabilize your thoughts, and support the chemical foundation of how you think, feel, and see the world. And when you start eating them regularly, you don't just feel clearer, you feel more you. Coming up next, we'll explore a third powerhouse, one that doesn't work through blood sugar or dopamine, but through inflammation control. And for aging eyes and brains, that's often the hidden key. Yes, I'm talking about edamame. Let's shift from energy and chemistry to inflammation, because for aging brains and eyes, inflammation is the silent destroyer. It chips away at your cognition, erodes your vision, and accelerates neurodegeneration, often without any pain, warning, or visible symptom. You might feel it as slowness, a delay in your response time, a little more blur in your peripheral vision, a bit more fatigue in your eyes after reading. But inside, there's something more serious happening. Your cells are fighting to stay alive in a toxic environment. That's where edamame steps in. These young green soybeans may look unassuming, but they're one of the richest dietary sources of plant-based anti-inflammatory compounds you can find, especially for protecting neurons and retinal tissue. First, let's talk about isoflavones, the star compounds in edamame. Eoflavones like genistein and daisine have been shown to suppress inflammatory cytokines in both the brain and the eyes. A 2021 study published in Nutrients found that older adults who consumed isoflavone-rich soy foods had markedly lower levels of IL-6 and TNF-alpha, two of the most destructive inflammatory markers linked to both Alzheimer's and macular degeneration. But edamame doesn't stop there. It's also packed with vitamin K1, which supports microvascular health, essential for blood flow to the retina and deep brain tissue. Reduced blood supply is one of the earliest triggers of neuronal aging. In 2020, researchers from the University of Sydney reported that higher vitamin K intake was associated with significantly slower cognitive decline in adults over 70. And then there's lutein, a yellow pigment that accumulates directly in the macula of the eye and the visual cortex of the brain. You may have heard of lutein from carrots or leafy greens, but most people don't realize edamame is one of the few legumes that naturally contains bioavailable lutein. According to a clinical trial in the Journal of Ophthalmic Nutrition in 2019, participants who consumed 6 mg of lutein daily showed measurable improvement in macular pigment density and visual acuity within just 8 weeks. Think of lutein as your internal sunglasses. It protects the delicate light-sensing cells in your eye from oxidative damage and improves how clearly your brain interprets visual signals. For seniors spending more time on screens or reading, this can be the difference between visual fatigue and visual comfort. Edamame also contains omega-3 ALA, a plant-based fatty acid that feeds brain membranes and supports synaptic fluidity. While it's not as concentrated as fish-based omega-3 seconds, regular intake of ALA has been linked to slower brain aging and improved memory performance as reported in the Journal of Nutrition in 2022. And here's the best part. Edamame is one of the most digestible and versatile forms of soy. It doesn't trigger the gut sensitivity that some fermented or processed soy products can. It's mild, soft, and easy to prepare, making it ideal for older adults who want to improve their eye-brain health through real food. You can steam it lightly with a pinch of sea salt, blend it into hummus, toss it into a salad, or simply eat it warm with olive oil and lemon as a snack. It works equally well as a side dish or a protein source for plant-based meals. Let me give you a quick example. David, 68, began eating edamame 4 times a week after struggling with dry eyes and mild memory slips. Within 6 weeks, his optometrist noted a marked improvement in macular hydration, and he reported fewer mental crashes after lunchtime. That's what happens when you stop inflaming your brain and start feeding it instead. The inflammation doesn't just go away on its own, you have to interrupt it. And edamame is one of the few foods that does exactly that, gently, naturally, and deeply. When you combine the blood sugar stability of black beans, the dopamine support of chickpeas, and the inflammation control of edamame, you don't just get a bean salad, you get a complete 360-degree neurological support system. In the next section, I'll show you exactly how to bring all 3 of these beans into your weekly routine without stress, without guesswork, and without sacrificing flavor, because the best healing plans are the ones you can actually stick to. At this point, you might be thinking, all right, Dr. Porter, I get it. These beans are powerful, but how do I actually fit them into my life without turning my kitchen into a science lab? I'm glad you asked, because healing your brain and protecting your vision doesn't require a complicated diet or dozens of supplements. In fact, it only takes 3 simple steps built into a rhythm that even the busiest or most tired person can follow. Let's start with the most important principle. Consistency beats intensity. You don't need to eat black beans every day. You don't have to survive on chickpeas. You don't have to force edamame into every meal. What you do need is to give your brain and eyes steady exposure to the nutrients they're missing. So here's a practical rhythm I often recommend to my patients. Choose 3 days each week to include one of these beans in your meals. They don't have to be in a row. For example, you might have black beans on Monday, chickpeas on Wednesday, and edamame on Saturday. The exact days don't matter. What matters is building the habit, and when it comes to preparation, keep it simple. Black beans are incredibly versatile. You can toss them into a warm grain bowl with brown rice and vegetables. Add them to a vegetable soup, or just enjoy them with olive oil and a bit of lemon. Chickpeas work beautifully in salads. You can mash them into a spread or dip fresh carrots into hummus for an easy midday snack. Edamame is even easier. Just steam for 5 minutes, sprinkle with a pinch of sea salt, and enjoy as a warm side dish. You can also blend it into a creamy dip or stir it into stir-fry vegetables. To boost the benefits even more, try adding a drizzle of olive oil or a squeeze of fresh lemon. Spices like turmeric, black pepper, or a dash of garlic not only add flavor, they also support absorption and reduce inflammation naturally. What I love most about this plan is that it works whether you live alone, cook for a full household, or rely mostly on pantry and freezer foods. These beans are affordable, easy to store, and even easier to cook. No complicated recipes, no timers, no stress. And if it feels like too much at first, just start small. Even half a cup of one bean every few days is enough to start sending the right signals to your nervous system and your eyes. Remember this: every time you reach for one of these foods, you're not just eating, you're investing. You're choosing to fuel your brain instead of drain it. You're saying, I still care about how I think, feel, and see. And that message spoken through action, not words, can change everything. Healing is not about doing it all at once. It's about doing the next right thing again and again until your body begins to remember who it used to be. In our final part, I'll remind you why this message matters and what it truly means to take back control of your brain and your vision. If you've made it this far, I want to tell you something important. You are not broken. You are not fading. You are not becoming someone else. What's been happening, the foggus, the forgetfulness, the strain behind your eyes, is not some mysterious sign of decline. It's a signal, a quiet, persistent signal that your brain and your vision are undernourished. Not because you've done something wrong, but because no one ever taught you how to feed them properly. We've been trained to believe that cognitive decline is inevitable, that once our memory slips or our eyesight dims, it's just age and there's nothing we can do. But that's a lie. What we eat, how we move, how we care for ourselves. These things matter more than we've ever been told. And sometimes the most powerful healing starts with the most humble foods. 3 beans. That's all we talked about today. Black beans for stable energy and retina protection. Chickpeas for dopamine, mood, and memory. Edamame for deep inflammation control and visual clarity. None of them are magic, but they don't need to be because your body already knows how to heal. It just needs the right fuel to remember how. You're not losing your mind. You're just missing the nutrients that keep it alive. And the good news is now, you know where to find them. So start small. Add 1 new thing this week. Give your brain and eyes a reason to believe that support is finally on the way, because it's never too late to think more clearly. It's never too late to see life with new eyes, and it's never too late to come back to yourself. If this message spoke to you even just a little, I want to say thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. Thank you for staying with me all the way to the end. If you found value in this video, I invite you to click like, share it with someone you care about, or leave a comment below and tell me what you're changing first. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so we can keep walking this healing path together. 1 step, 1 meal, 1 truth at a time. This is Dr. James Porter.